Edith Head showed Hollywood how to dress.
With Hitchcock and Edith Head, there is that sense of it being a true professional marriage.
Hitchcock was at home when his collaborators were storytellers. He understood that she was one of them, and he welcomed her in helping him design these Adam and Eves for his little biblical tales of doom.
Both men and women in Hitchcock's films designed by Edith Head have all of the trappings of what is required of a gentleman, what is required of a lady.
It's a field in which nobody remembers some of the most glorious designers, but Edith Head is always remembered.
Well, if there's one thing I know, it's how to wear the proper clothes.
Edith did an enormous number of films, more than any other person in history, way more than any other person in history.
Not only did she do hundreds of films as a department head at Paramount and at Universal, she was spearheading costume designing as a profession, as an art form. She turned the light on Hollywood glamour.
The job of a costume designer is to identify, to explain visually what the story is about, who the characters are, by what they're wearing. Is it morning? Is it night? Are they rich? Are they poor? This is all part of the costume designer's job.
One of the great qualities of a wardrobe designer is to assume the fact that they are storytellers. Edith Head understood that every piece of fabric, every swatch of color told a story.
As a costume designer, you're the extra dimension to a character. So you tell secrets, you tell stories. You can very subtly give all sorts of information about a character. You look at somebody like Tippi Hedren in The Birds and you know exactly who she is. When you see her costume, you know that she is pretty held together, you know that she's of a certain class, but you also know that she is a woman who could be intimidated, and I think that is due to the textures that were used, the way they were used, the colors that were used, and I think that if we can give this extra sense, our job becomes much, much more valid than just putting pretty people into pretty costumes.
Why don't I slip into something more comfortable?
By all means. Edith started out at Paramount in 1923 as a sketch artist, so she started designing clothes for difficult actresses who didn't get along with Travis Banton, who was the main designer there, or for unimportant actresses or small pictures. As time went by, she, as well as other designers, had to get used to the director having an input in what they designed.
The first time Edith Head worked with Hitchcock was on Notorious in 1946. And she was still working with him. She didn't do every picture, but she did very many of them, right? And including the last one, Family Plot.
Oh, dear.
I don't think there's a single costume designer in the whole world that wouldn't give everything to be able to work again and again with the same director. Only good things come out of this. And to have done 11 films with the same masterly director, a director who was considered God among directors, it did nothing but enhance her career hugely.
In Rear Window, Alfred Hitchcock was very clever. They showed a lot of cottons and lower echelon type of people. It was very warm, and there were a lot of colors around. James Stewart's in his pajamas, and then in walks Grace Kelly in a white and black cocktail dress. Beautiful tulle, black feathers. She looks like Hollywood glamour.
It's right off the Paris plane. You think it'll sell?
Around this old wood and browns and colors that are all around her, she pops right out. That was designed.
Preview of coming attractions.
Hitchcock said that Grace Kelly's character in Rear Window should evoke the feeling of a piece of Dresden china, beautiful but untouchable. And that's what Edith did for her, until the very end where you see her in the blue jeans and the pink blouse. But it shows how strong this woman has become from her experience in this particular mystery. Doris Day in The Man Who Knew Too Much, and later on Tippi Hedren in The Birds, wear the same costume through most of the film. It had to be something that the audience didn't get tired of, that supported the characterization. For Doris Day, it was a gray silk suit, and originally Edith had many more touches on it. She had a belt, she had a scarf around the neck. I guess with Hitchcock's prodding, she took those things off to make the thing simpler. He and she both liked a color called Eau de Nil green, and we see Grace Kelly wearing an Eau de Nil green outfit in Rear Window, and Tippi Hedren wears Eau de Nil all through The Birds.
Most people, when they look at The Birds and see the suit that Tippi is wearing, don't even notice that there is not this costume change, because you, by that point, are on a journey. And I think one of the lessons to the costume designer is to sometimes sit in the background and let the story do the talking.
There's a very, very famous Edith Head story about the making of Vertigo.
When Vertigo started out, the leading lady was to have been Vera Miles, and Edith made the whole wardrobe for her and tested it and everything. And then Miss Miles had to leave the production because she was pregnant. And so Kim Novak was very hurriedly borrowed from Columbia.
It was well known that when Kim Novak was cast, she had not been Hitchcock's first choice. So she came with a slight chip on her shoulder.
Well, you've got a nerve. Follow me right into the hotel and up to my room. Now, you beat it.
Added to which, it was also well known that Kim Novak hated grey. And the one message that Edith had from Hitchcock was that he wanted her in grey.
You want me to be dressed like her?
Judy, I just want you to look nice. I know the kind of a suit that'll look well on you.
No, I won't do it.
At the time, of course, Kim Novak was the top star in Hollywood, and she was a serious actress about her craft. And when she was told that Hitchcock wanted to put blonde wigs on her and wear a gray dress with a white underscarf and blouse, she felt that was inappropriate, that she'd look washed out.
And Edith Head went back to Hitchcock and said, you know, this actress does not want to wear grey. She would be very happy to wear any other colour. And he said, I don't mind what colour she wears as long as it's grey.
And in the script it says that Madeleine Elster is dressed in grey and white, with her pale skin and her blonde hair, so that she looks as if she just stepped out of the San Francisco fog.
Edith Head, being the consummate diplomat, then arrived at the next meeting with an enormous range of fabrics, all in grey. And somehow it was never mentioned again. It was somehow sorted out between the three of them without anyone having to lose any sleep about it.
Look, it's not fair. It's too late. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. It shouldn't have happened.
But it had to happen. We're in love. That's all that counts.
Look, let me go. Please,
Listen
let me
to
go.
Listen to
During Edith Head and Hitchcock's era, they were building stars. So they would take this beautiful specimen of a woman or a man, and they would create this wonderful world of tailoring or dressmaking around them, and they decide what their image would be.
Hitchcock encouraged Edith Head to not only design for the stars in his film, but in their lives too.
Edith Head made personal clothes for a lot of actresses that she was working with in films. In the case of Tippi Hedren, Hitchcock wanted a certain look for her for when she went to the premiere or for when she did interviews and so forth.
It says so much about his incredible masterly touch that he wouldn't even let them live their own lives without some sense that he was conducting it as a grand orchestra conductor.
Edith did not often start trends in films. She followed the Parisian trends closely. In Rear Window, Grace Kelly wears a suit that was very much influenced by what Balenciaga had just done in Paris.
Edith Head was very refined, and she had a good sense of artistic continuity and artistic balance. She studied art. She studied French. So I think when she came into costume design, she was coming at it from an art background.
I could see you looking very handsome and successful in a dark blue flannel suit.
Where I think where she was the strongest was in contemporary clothing. Whatever time she was working in, she worked in the late 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, right through the 70s. When I see some of the old work, and it looks totally contemporary, she's managed never to look dated.
Edith was a conservative designer. She did not like using prints. The main one was Grace Kelly at the end of the film, where she goes to Raymond Burr's apartment.
Lisa, what are you doing?
And there she wears a very fluffy printed dress with lots of petticoats underneath and high heels, all of which make her vulnerable. But she stayed away from them because she thought if she used a certain kind of a print, and if the film was held up for a couple of years, by the time it finally came out, the print would look passé, and she wouldn't look good.
I like when Edith Head does outfits that look like people traveling, and it's so well accessorized, and there's a scarf and a jacket, and, you know, things are crisp. So when I look at The Man Who Knew Too Much, the scene when they're all together on the bus traveling through Africa, and the colors and the cottons and the women with the Muslim garb on. It's really just a great cinematic moment in costume design.
I know that people call Edith Head the master of understated style, and I think she might have called herself that too. I don't quite see it that way. I think what she does is take the American dream, the perfect household, the perfect life, the white gloves, the little hat, the perfect exterior, and just pick it up to Hollywood level. So it just walks that maybe a foot above water.
What do you think?
Well,
I will rephrase the question.
thank you.
Do you like it?
Edith was smart enough to have seen actresses like Mae West and Marlene Dietrich who created images for themselves and then stuck with them for years. And she wore the bangs because she had a very broad forehead and another hairstyle wasn't flattering to her. But also from the 50s on, she was very famous.
She would do talk shows. She would go on tours with clothes and to explain to people how to dress. She was always a star.
She created this image of herself that fascinated the public, and it was a useful thing in terms of perpetuating her career.
It's also very important to keep in mind that Edith Head, who I believe has more Academy Awards than any other person in the history of Hollywood, had a huge staff of people who actually did the work.
Look, sewing machine!
This is one of the secrets that's not supposed to be told. In her many, many, many years at Paramount and then at Universal, she had a vast number of colleagues, of elves sewing away and designing and giving her ideas. But it was her yes or no that made something possible.
One of the ladies who worked with Edith a lot making the clothes said she had no scruples, but she had charisma. And she could find something that would please the producer, the director, the star, and the cameraman. And she would change her dresses according to their wishes.
Hitchcock liked working with Edith Head because she could be relied upon to do what she was told. And if he said he wants such and such, Edith gave it to him.
Other designers wouldn't do that. They would say, listen, this is it. You change your work in order to go along with my costume. So those people had the courage of their convictions, but they didn't last as long as Edith did.
Do you really like the scarf, Mama? It's real mink. Oh, there, you look just like an old man's darling.
Edith was famous for being diplomatic and for convincing anybody that it was fabulous and everything was wonderful. I mean, she was consummate. That's where her big talent was. The stars adored her, the ones she dressed. And then as the studio systems broke up and they started to spread and they became independent freelance artists, they would request her.
One of the most important functions of a designer is to be that bridge between a director and an actor. And one of the wonderful things that Edith Head did is she gave actors more confidence. She gave them a sense that they were beautiful. She gave them a sense that they were incredibly important. And she gave them the confidence to be able to wear her beautiful clothes with joy. One of the great feelings always I have watching a Hitchcock film is that it is above reality. It is more polished than the world we know. People are more immaculately dressed. Their hair is more perfect. But you never look at them and go, who are these people? You actually accept their world. There are really very, very few directors who are real collaborators, who can actually inform their costume designers in such a way that they will produce for them the perfect costumes. I think that is the genius of his work, and certainly the genius of his work with Edith Head.